Welcome back to the Man Cave, everybody, for another episode of the ManTFup podcast, season 3, fully underway. I am Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
Before we go any further, please like, subscribe, share, and follow. We are absolutely any and everywhere. And please, please, please drop your comments as they come to you, whether you're watching a clip on one of our social media accounts or the full video on YouTube or, listening live on iHeart or Apple or Spotify or wherever. We just love to hear from you. Now, we've talked about a lot of things so far in season 3, Len. We've talked about the labor force. We've talked about, the upcoming presidential election season. But today we're talking about something that hits home, I think, for a lot of folks here in our own state and around this country, and that is natural disaster and the federal government's response or lack thereof to it. You sent me a really, really disheartening clip. Again, this comes from TikTok, and it's, a personal account. This isn't coming from anybody that necessarily works in the federal government or has an official capacity as far as response goes. But what they're pointing out, like I said, is really disheartening. So go ahead and play the clip.
I'm willing to bet most people aren't aware of how bad the United States government is fucking the people who lost their home in the Maui fire. See, as a result of the Maui wildfire, 2,207 homes in Lahaina burnt down. And I'm sure that you would imagine there's a lot of reconstruction going on. But you'd be wrong. See, since the Maui wildfire, not a single building permit has been approved. Not one. Oh, and I'm sure you'd also think that all the people that had their homes burned down were going to be receiving insurance payouts. And you're probably thinking that the only reason they haven't received those insurance payouts is because of the evil insurance companies don't want to pay them. But you would be wrong again. See, the insurance companies haven't been able to pay anything because the United States government won't even allow the insurance adjusters into the area, where all they want to do is go in there and verify that these buildings have burned down. They want to verify how extensive the damage is for each of the homes that they insured. And for a lot of these homes, it would be as easy as them driving up, taking a picture of a burnt down property, therefore verifying that that home no longer exists, and then they could cut a check. But the U.S. government won't let them do that. And the U.S. government won't let anybody rebuild. And here's the wildest part. Because the insurance adjusters can't verify that these homes burnt down, and because the United States government won't approve a single fucking building permit, all of these people are still paying their mortgages. These people no longer have homes. But because they're not approving building permits, and they're not letting the insurance adjusters in, the banks are still charging these people a mortgage. These people are paying a fucking mortgage on houses that don't even exist. And many of them are getting foreclosed on. Like, imagine how ridiculous that is. Your house burnt to the fucking ground. Your insurance company wants to go out there. They want to go see the burnt down house, take a picture, and cut you a check. But the government, in the interest of helping people, I guess, won't let them do that. So the banks get to keep collecting the mortgage payments. And if you can't make the mortgage payments on the house that isn't even fucking there anymore, they get to foreclose on the property. And now the bank owns the land where your house used to be. And all of this is happening because the government will not approve any building permits and won't even let the insurance adjusters in. But yeah, you guys keep celebrating that Biden visited there for 4 hours. I'm sure that's some comfort to these people.
Okay, so clearly all of that is horrifying information, right? The visuals coming out of Lahaina when those fires were burning were even more horrifying. The response, I mean, multiple people have either been fired or have resigned that were supposed to be a part of the emergency response system in that area of Maui. We know that the emergency response system didn't even work. People were not alerted. There's so many things that we could obviously, I think, comment on without having a whole lot of expertise.
Yeah, there was a lot of kookiness going on about it too, which, everybody made a point here and there, but the main point is they let it happen, and the response.
Yeah. What I didn't realize was, though, at the time that we're playing you this clip, and I'm searching, obviously, news files on the situation, today, and just so you know, obviously, sometimes we film these things.
Yeah, in advance.
Is the actual day that they started official cleanup. I didn't realize those fires have actually still been burning.
Mm-hmm.
There have been hot spots. It's been very difficult for them to actually get this thing fully under control. And also the Army Corps of Engineers is involved in the cleanup because apparently there's some seriously hazardous material. There's also burial plots in some of these areas and sacred ground. So they have to be very careful as far as removal of debris goes. And if you saw the aftermath, I mean, wildfires. I'll take hurricanes
Yeah.
any day of the week and twice on Sundays. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get advance notice. We can plan. We can board up. We can throw a party if we want to. Wildfires pop up out of nowhere, and they are just vicious. I mean, it's frightening to watch or to hear anybody kind of, give you a play-by-play of what happens in those situations. And the devastation is just total. So super heartbreaking. But as I'm reading an update, I didn't realize the nuances of the response in the aftermath. Apparently they said that the cleanup and even just to get to the foundations of all of these could take another year and a half. This is an uninhabitable part of the island at this point in time. Mm-hmm. So beyond insurance companies getting in there, they're not letting anybody except for, it sounds like government officials and members of the Army Corps of Engineers in to even start clearing debris away. And that has just started happening 5 months into the process.
Well, I mean, that's 5 months of bureaucracy. It's ridiculousness. I mean, they could have had boots on the ground day one, and they could be helping these people.
No, I think that to me is the bigger, like, I'm not going to sit here and blame, I don't necessarily agree with where some of his rage was directed as far as like the insurance companies not being able to get in there. We have aerial photos at this point. Like, if it's a dangerous place for anybody to be, you know what I mean? Whether that's, there's toxic fumes. There's a lot of, I think, moving pieces as far as, I mean, that's what they're talking about.
I thought there were still people living in stuff that didn't burn.
It doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound that way.
I mean, I think there's areas that
I'm
houses
sure that
burnt
those
down and other houses didn't.
But they're literally saying 5 months, destroying over 2,000 buildings, filling
Where did
the
all
air
those
with
videos
toxins.
of people walking around popping up on Instagram? Where did all those videos come from? There was people there.
There were people there then. I'm sure in some of these severely impacted areas, they were roadblocked when it was happening because you remember there were some of those instances where people were trying to go get loved ones and were told no, which is, again, heartbreaking. It's just, like you said, it's a crazy situation. I didn't realize the extent of the, I knew the severity of it, but it doesn't sound like it's cut and dry, like just go in, clear it out, and start to rebuild. It doesn't sound like that's how this is going to work, but the fact that people are paying mortgages, there needs to be some sort of financial, to your point, financial relief. Like, there should be a mortgage moratorium.
Well, the banks aren't going to do that. I mean, you let the insurance companies pay off the house, and then the banks aren't owed any money, and whatever. You still own the land, and you can refinance afterwards.
But these people still have, you pay off the house, they still have to, I get that they're not paying a mortgage, they still have to pay for another residence, though, right now.
Yeah, but you still own the land, and you refinance to build a new house. You get a new loan to build a new house. It's the same thing. It's whether you take the money to rebuild the house or you take the money to pay off the mortgage.
I know, but then what happens when I now have access back to the land? I've now spent it on renting somewhere else. I can't.
Yeah, I mean,
so now, like, you know what I mean?
5 months is ridiculous.
But why? We can bail banks. So this is going to be, and again, I'm not an economist. Anybody who watches this podcast knows that. My accountant knows that. I think I'm more of a principled person when it comes to things like this. Mm-hmm. The American people bailed the banks out. Why can't the banks bail the American people out? You're talking about 2,000 homes. This is not going to put a bank out of business.
This works with the banking system.
Is it going to put a bank out of business?
Because I can go back to 2010. The banking system will not offer you any assistance until you're 60 to 90 days behind.
Well, they've
already started bearing you. No, people are paying their mortgage. I mean, the smart people are still paying their mortgage.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, but to me that's predatory lending. Like, that's.
Oh, but that's the way banks operate. You can't file a claim for distress until you actually have put the property in distress by not paying the payment
And
in the bank's eyes.
I understand all of that. But again, the federal government intervened to bail our banks out for making bad investments.
Yeah.
These people are not bad investments.
No.
Nature just reared its ugly head, right? So if the federal government can intercede on behalf of the banks, why can't the federal government intercede on behalf of the people who paid the taxes that bailed the banks out? Like, this is where I have a problem. There should be, I'm all for doing our part, right? Like I told you, I had no problem paying taxes during COVID that went to other people who were maybe out of a job, who hadn't made a certain threshold of money, so long as it was going, obviously, to the right places. I have no problem doing that. But again, when it comes to my tax money and what it's being spent on as an American and as an American who lives in a state that is always at the mercy of Mother Nature, right? Being here in Florida, we've all been impacted by natural disaster in some way, shape, or form. I want my tax money to help fellow Americans, especially fellow Americans who were not given an opportunity.
Listen, 2017 hurricane that hit us, whatever one it was. Yeah, it wasn't a major hurricane, but it took down a shit ton of trees. Took down a shit ton of trees. It, it fucked us up pretty good. I think everything was probably cleaned up, spick and span, in 3-4 months.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say something like short. I was like, no.
3-4 months, all the tree, everything was cut, clean, nothing ever happened. That's what it looked like. So now, this is South Florida. We have, what? Let's say there was 5 million people impacted by that, And we managed to clean up in 4 or 5 months, and they're 5 months in a town that has
2,000 homes, 6,000 people.
They can't get anything done. That's bullshit. The toxic shit is bullshit. All of that is bullshit. They can move as fast as they want to move. Oakland, California, earthquake, right? The bridge, the double-decker highway fell. The federal government hired a private contractor, said, if you can get this done in this amount of time, we'll pay you X amount of dollars, period. Every day you go over that, we're taking away some.
We're docking,
Boom. They rebuilt that stretch of highway in 30 days.
Well, I mean, let's also talk about, because and Lenny, before we got into this conversation about obviously what's happening, in real time in Maui, we were talking about some other examples of really poor relief and response. Another great example is Hurricane Maria when it hit Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's a U.S. and they're still not, to your point, they're still not back. And I think I will give a little bit of leniency when you're dealing with islands. Things can be a little bit more difficult to get. To get things in there. You're going to be dealing with an exasperated amount of time just from that perspective.
Everything's got to be shipped.
But when you're talking about people and you're coming at it from a humanity perspective, the basic necessities, food, housing, clothing, you know what I mean? You have kids that I'm sure are in school at this point in time. They need to know where they're going to lay their head. They need to know that they have a safe place to sleep, all of these things. That's where I take issue.
They can take a complete army unit and move 5,000 soldiers to the middle of the desert in less than a week.
Yeah.
Why aren't these people being taken care of?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, same thing with Katrina. Katrina was a horrible situation.
Yes, it was. I mean, and the Ninth Ward never.
We're talking about, Puerto Rico, Hawaii is difficult logistically for rebuilding, but it's not difficult logistically for housing people.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying from a perspective of taking care of the individuals who are impacted. And again, when I see a clip like that, because unfortunately we're not getting all the details, and like I said, I just happened to type it in and to find out that we're 5 months in, and today's the today, 5 months later, is the official day of cleanup. So whenever you're watching this, we're in January of 2024, right?
Yep.
And so for this to be the first day that boots are on the ground actually you know what I'm saying?
Cleaning.
That's just wild. And this is the official people. This is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, along with whatever contractors they brought in. And again, I'm not mad at taking the time as far as the foundations go. I'm not mad at taking the time with sacred ground, and because I'm sure some of the people impacted want them to be careful of these things. But we've been hearing a lot about the land grab element of this, right? And, if you can force people out of their homes, then developers can come in and they get the land at a much reduced price. Somebody actually commented that on the video. They were like, "But people don't realize."
Even if they paid full price for it, it's still land that's.
But they said you don't.
Right.
They foreclose.
Yeah,
Like when
they
they foreclose on
foreclose,
something, now the government can either step in and buy
Yes.
a swath, or you can again do development
banks will
deals
own it,
and
yeah.
things like that. And we saw that in New Orleans. You had a large part of a community that had very strong historical roots to the Ninth Ward in particular, and many of them never returned to the city that was home to parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and so on and so forth. Homes that were the only home that some of these families had ever known, owned. They were asked for deeds, and it was like, deed? My grandfather built this, 100 years ago, and it's just been passed down. And unfortunately, they didn't have the finances to come back. And I feel this situation in Lahaina feels very similar to that.
Yeah.
You have a community of everyday folks surrounded by one of the one of the wealthiest kind of,
Yeah. And it's prime real estate. It's not like they,
accumulations
it's not like,
yeah. And
it's not like it's the hood.
well, no, but it and that's just frustrating. But again, and I get it, capitalism, right? It's a blessing and a curse. But to me, where do we draw the line as Americans where you stand up and you say, you have to protect our people, because these are the people who work in that community. These are the people who make sure the billionaires, lawn maintenance gets done.
We've talked about where do the workers live.
They live in Lahaina.
No, in this area. But I mean, we've talked about it, and here you can, there's a lot of other places to live, and it's an easy commute. In Maui, it's not.
No.
No.
Yeah.
In Maui, you're talking, a boat ride to communities to live.
And what does that end up looking like? Does this end up being one of those situations where it's like, oh, we'll build affordable house? Like, is this a gentrification attempt? Perfect opportunity. If we just wait them out, if we make this take as long as possible, they'll relocate. But again, that changes the dynamic of an entire island economy. Yeah. When you lose 6,000 people that make the day to day. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I feel like we keep forgetting across the board, as Americans, is that this is how we run. Everybody can want to be the Oprah of their area.
These little things, which are not really little things, but these things that we hear little about in the mainstream, wherever narrative, are really part of the things that I think are really upsetting people in this country, is that we're not taking care of the people who are here, who are Americans. And I think that's a lot of the frustration for people,
But I think that, and there's many facets to that though, Len, because obviously, somebody's going to hear that and think you're referencing mass immigration, right? Like, that's a very real. I'm not saying that you're not. I'm just saying
I'm not.
No.
The immigration thing is a different thing. I'm talking about the people who are, homeless in this country, not fed in this country, not housed in this country.
But when you say that we're taking care of, when you say we're taking care of other people, somebody's going to hear that and
other countries.
Okay.
Other countries. I mean, we can deal with our immigration however we want to do it, and I'm still for legal immigration into this country. That's fine. But, other countries. People see us sending so much money to other countries to support their agendas over there.
I'll keep it local. Again, we bailed out our banking industry.
Yeah.
Like we also feed the capitalist monster. Like, we also take Americans' hard-earned money and we give it to companies to keep our, economy economizing.
It's, I mean,
Forgive me.
that's a
functioning.
That's an example of, how our government might be a little broken.
But 6,000 people then. Like,
Yeah.
like, this is not.
No, it's
This
not
is-
a big. It's not a big ask.
Like, I'm trying to think, like, there was something about, like, there was 10,000. There's a cruise ship. There's a cruise ship in the port of Miami right now
Yeah.
that can hold more people on it than than the folks in Lahaina that were impacted by this wildfire.
Yeah.
Do you understand
Yeah.
that there are people that are going to be cruising, or there'll be more people on that cruise ship
Yeah. Than the people that
eating
were affected.
buffets and watching ice skating
Yeah.
shows, than the people that are suffering in, like, put it in perspective. This is not a big ask,
No.
right? So the fact that they've been sitting there for 5 months and some of them are having homes foreclosed on, which that's a snowball effect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's now your credit. That's the stress that comes with that. That's the,
Yeah. Well, here's the better part. Once the home is foreclosed
insecurity that comes
on, the
with
insurance money goes to the bank.
that. Oh, that I didn't. I mean, I'm not a homeowner.
course.
That's horrible. Oh, wow.
Of course, the person doesn't own it anymore. The bank's going to get their money back. The bank's going to get the insurance money.
The irony of all of this, right, is that according to this man in the state of Hawaii, right, you have insurance companies that actually want to pay out.
Yeah.
And then you look at the state of Florida, where all of our insurance companies have
Yeah.
pulled out, and they certainly don't want to pay out.
No.
Ever. Like, so when he says that, I'm not going to sit here and defend all of the insurance companies.
Yeah.
But again, that is something that our politicians, how do you even allow that to happen? Like, you are a company, or you are companies operating inside of the United States of America. Our rules and regulations should protect our people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to make money off of the backs of hardworking Americans who just want to live the American dream, own a home and be able to fix it when a flood comes, or put a new roof on it after, a hurricane blows through and takes it off, or if there's a wildfire, God forbid, or rebuild completely, right? We've been paying you premiums forever, just in case. Like, if you added up all, like, 2017 is really the last time, I know, we were impacted by a storm, right? Like here in South Florida. But have you stopped paying your insurance premiums? No. Like, neither have the other million.
Insurance companies. Well, now the insurance here has gone ridiculous in the condo and the communities. So the insurance. My HOA insurance for 55 units went up $100,000 in 1 year. $100,000 the premium went up for 55
for
townhouses.
everybody in your, wow.
Yeah. So that's ridiculousness. But insurance companies never really make money because they take your premium and they invest it with another company that makes money. So the insurance companies can always claim poor,
Got you.
but they're using your money to make,
Similar to banks.
yeah, that's all it is. It's all, there's no insurance companies that are really independently owned.
But again, when push comes to shove and an entire industry is about to go belly up, who do they call on to save them?
yeah.
Us. Yet when 6,000 people in a small community in Maui need a little help,
They're like,
need a little, need a little leeway, need a little
sorry,
forgiveness.
there's nothing we can do. Policy prohibits us helping you.
In the words of Joe Pesci, fuck you, pay me.
Yeah.
Or in the words of whatever it is, Goodfellas. I don't remember. Oh no, it was Ray Liotta said that. Fuck you, pay me. And that to me, again, when we're talking about it being an election season, when we're talking about politics in this country, when we're talking about what it is to be an American, what does our government do for us? Like, these are the conversations we need to be having, because this is where we keep falling short. And what's really unfortunate is this is when we need our government the most, right? Like, when you're just shit out of luck and you're looking at a house that no longer exists, and
Yeah, I mean,
you're thinking, where do I...
God forbid something big happened in this country. It would be fend for yourself. It really would. I mean, we have a super volcano in this country. If that fucking erupted...
Yeah. It has, hasn't it, in the past?
Oh, it's 200,000 years ago or something.
What's the super volcano?
Yosemite.
Oh, the guys.
The whole
okay.
entire park.
Oh, well, because I'm thinking Mount.
Mount St. Helens.
St. Helens.
Yeah,
and
but that's not a super volcano. That was just a regular little.
She has erupted though before.
Yeah.
Hasn't she?
Yeah, Mount St. Helens, 83, 4,
God.
5, 6, 7, somewhere around there in the 80s.
Shame on me.
In the 80s.
I need to go back and
and and that destroyed
geography
swath
class,
of
clearly.
stuff, but yeah, if we had something that really impacted the whole country,
Or like the San Andreas Fault decides to just...
drop California into the ocean.
It's not funny, but like the things that you see in the
Hope
movie.
Gavin's on the west side. But anything, like if the
Or a
if the
tsunami
power grid
against-
went down
yeah.
in this country for any length of time.
But to your point, but even I mean, we've seen it happen in other, I don't want to say less developed, but less populous countries, tsunamis, which are very, very real. We have massive,
200 plus
tectonic
thousand
plate
people got killed. by that.
activity happening underneath us.
Oh yeah, you could wipe out the whole East Coast in
That's
one shot.
what I'm saying. Like, so, and as far as obviously in those responses, you're like, okay, well, but even wildfire season in California, right? Like every year it's coming every single year. And, you don't just automatically rope off a quadrant of land and say, nobody's going to live here because we get fires, right? That's not how it works. Land is a high value commodity in this country, and people don't care. They live in Malibu on cliffs that at any given moment you could have a mudslide and your $20 million home is in the ocean. Mm-hmm. They don't care, right? They don't care. They want to live there. And again, we pay premiums to insurance companies and all of these things. But when push comes to shove, and I do believe that Americans, government aside, do come together, right? Like when we know that our countrymen, like in those situations, are hurting, we step up. I know in Florida, anytime we've ever done if there's been a situation when the Caribbean got rocked by Maria and all those, remember it was just like one storm after the other. There were drives every week, and people came through.
Yeah.
Pallets of water, pallets of diapers, baby food,
Bahamas,
batteries.
it was huge.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We had boat brigades going over. People were flying their private planes over. I mean, it's an incredible response. And I think, and at this point, if you watch the news one night out of the week, you realize every state in this country is at the mercy of Mother Nature. Like every state.
Yes.
We've been seeing it all, so far just in this year alone. The Eastern Seaboard's been, brutalized. The Midwest, you go out to the Northwest and they're dealing with their own mess. And so it's absolutely crazy that this isn't more of a priority. And by this, I mean emergency response, emergency relief, how we take care of Americans in the aftermath of these situations without them having to be displaced forever. Like that's the other part of it, right? Yeah. Like, okay, we send the Red Cross and we get to a hotel. Or
financially destroyed if they did the right thing.
But it happens everywhere. It's happened in the Panhandle of Florida. That entire community up there where Hurricane Michael hit, that Category 5, looks completely different a handful of years after that storm. Most of the locals had to move out. You're going to see the same thing in that Fort Myers, Cape Coral corridor.
Oh, that's already happened.
But I'm just saying when it's all said, but you know what I'm saying? When it's all said and done and we see what has been rebuilt in the wake of this, you're not going to see, and I hate to say this, the trailer or the little, 2-3 bedroom house that was sitting on a nice plot of land on the water that had been in a family's, for 3 and 4. You're not going to see that anymore because they had to take the money and bounce. They couldn't afford to rebuild. They couldn't afford, any of those things. They didn't have the proper insurance coverage, and that to me is sad because that's what makes Florida, right? That's what makes Maui, right? You don't have Maui without Lahaina and the people that live there.
Yeah, the locals and Maui is like, that's what you go there for.
And then the people that have been vacationing there or who aspire to buy a retirement home in a community because they've been going for forever, all of a sudden are like, wait, this doesn't feel like it used to feel when I was a kid. And it's like, well, you're sitting in your $5 million beach house, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel the way that it used to feel because there were 4 families that lived on this plot of land that couldn't afford to stay here after a hurricane because of people like you. And I don't want to place blame on the folks who have versus the folks, who don't have as much. But it's like that shouldn't be the ramifications of a natural disaster. Poor decision making on your own part. Different situation.
That's a different situation.
You know what I'm saying? Like you have a gambling problem and you lose your home. That is what it is.
Super wealthy people will come in and pay over what it's worth.
Always.
Because they want it.
Yep.
So, it's not that. It's the lack of compassion
and protection.
and protection of U.S. citizens by our federal government. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
I agree. I mean, again, write this day down. I agree wholeheartedly. And I just don't. What are the next steps, though? Because obviously it's like, you have the folks, you have FEMA. We have emergency response systems in place. And of course, if you've ever been in a natural disaster situation, nothing ever feels fast enough, right? Like nothing ever feels like it's getting done unless you're doing it yourself, unless you have the means to call in the private contractors and remove the tree and clear out the debris and hire.
I'll tell you, I think
a roofer.
I think we're spoiled here because I can go back to Hurricane Andrew. And within 2 days of Hurricane Andrew, the National Guard rolled into South Florida, and they blocked off Coconut Grove, South Miami, everywhere. And they allowed people in that could prove they lived there or had a business there or something.
Yeah.
But the response was phenomenal. And I mean, it took a long time to rebuild from Andrew because, every house in Southwest Miami was flattened. But the response was there. The people were taken care of immediately. And I think we've had that here in South Florida, luckily. And I don't know if it's because of our governor or government or whoever it was at the time.
But the National Guard rolled into, they were it wasn't 2 days. It was like whatever it was with Katrina. The National Guard got there. They don't always help the situation, exponentially. And again, I'm talking about more, the long-term recovery of a community.
Yeah.
And again, when we talk about, and obviously 5 months isn't long-term, I think, and I'm pretty sure the people in Lahaina are well aware, it's going to take
Every
years.
building could take years.
But
the bottom line is 5 months is too long to wait to
100,
start.
well, or even just to have some sort of relief or acknowledgement.
Yeah.
We know that you're suffering. Like, they've already lost everything, and now on top of it, they've got to figure out how to pay for everything that they lost. It's like they're paying twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that to me is heartbreaking. And again, I want those people to be able to go back and rebuild if they want to. If you don't want to go back there, then that should be your choice, but it shouldn't be because you lost your home or you can no longer afford to go there. You know what I mean? And you've now been displaced from what is probably the only place you ever knew. You know what I mean? That to me is just, that's unacceptable. It was unacceptable when it happened, in New Orleans. It's unacceptable when it happens in the Panhandle. It's unacceptable if it happens in Puerto Rico. It's just unacceptable.
I'd like to see all those billionaires that live around there take care of those people.
But also and on top of it, the developers that make all of these false promises, right? And we're gonna make it better, we're gonna make it this, we're gonna make it that. No, don't worry, you'll be able to come back. And the next thing you know, there's a 60-story, high rise that's gone up, to your point, with 20 units for affordable housing dedicated, and nobody can afford to live within, 10 miles of this place that, these false, and again, it's the local politicians too. And I think sometimes it's, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, or you bite your nose off to spite. You're trying to get something done now because people want immediate results, but there's never any foresight. And it's like natural disasters are just a part of life at this point, and they continue to get worse and worse and worse. They just do. And then you pile that on top of our infrastructure issues that we already have. Like, every time you have these winter storms, you think that those aren't fucking up roads that are already in need of major work, bridges, things of that nature. When you have these ridiculous cold spells, like, there's so many moving pieces to it. And it's like, at the end of the day, so much of what we're fighting about with politicians is crazy, because
but I think
that's
shit. A big part of what real American people are disgruntled about. Is that where's the money for us at home? Forget about giving us money. Where's the money to fix the highway? Where's the money to take care of people who, had misfortune or a natural disaster happen? Where's that money? Why isn't that happening when we're worried about everything else around the world? We can afford to do all the stuff we're doing overseas, but we can't afford to, fix the potholes in Washington, D.C. Doesn't make sense.
Do you blame that just though on the politicians?
The politicians and the people who pay the politicians. Because the politicians don't make money from the American people. They make a living. Mm-hmm. They make money from everybody else.
Got you. Got you. But again, I think it's one of those things where as Americans, we have to use our voice and our vote and start demanding that people, like, we have a governor in this state, right? We have a governor in this state that many people love, right? Many people love. I'm not going to say he's single-handedly responsible for the state of insurance in this country right now, but he really hasn't addressed this
it's been
major.
Insurance has always been a problem in Florida.
It has, but
State Farm pulled out 20 years ago and then came back, and we have the Citizens.
But we're at a place now where we have like one. We have like one viable insurer for the entire state.
Yeah, Citizens.
Our car insurance alone is like 27% higher than anywhere else in the country. Like, it's crazy town.
Yeah, we got a lot of fucked up.
But again, he's been out here campaigning for the office of the president for the better part of 2 years, right? While the people in his state deal with all of these very real issues. We had biblical flooding in our own community in April of 2023, right? Like historic 27 inches of rain or something like that fell in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's part of the car insurance problem
Yeah.
right there. You know what I'm saying? Like, where is, and there are still parts of Broward County that are so saturated that, if you spit too much on the sidewalk, there's a flood. You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, how about you keep your happy ass home and let's deal with Florida, right? But I didn't elect him. That was not who I voted for.
Yeah.
The people who did don't really seem to take much issue with his behavior or lack of attendance.
I don't know.
Attentiveness. They're okay because he's anti-woke.
The problem with politicians in general is they typically only have, this much bandwidth. And sometimes that bandwidth is enough to get them in office and keep them in office. And they really don't ever say, I'm going outside of this realm. And they might be kooky over here and kooky over here, but that bandwidth keeps them in office.
But so for somebody like me, right, and I understand that there's many Americans who are anti-big government, right? Like, they don't want the federal government in particular sticking their hand or their nose in states' business. But I feel like if your politicians are dropping the ball on something that is so critical and important to every Floridian, right, that there should be some sort of reprimand. There should be some sort of, interaction or engagement. Like, Washington should be able to be. And Marco Rubio. We have people in Washington. It's not like we don't. We're a big state with a lot of citizens. We've got quite a few people in the House of Representatives. We've got two very vocal, at least one, we have two, but we have at least one very vocal senator.
Well, where did their campaign contributions come from? State Farm?
And shame on me because I haven't dealt with.
Who puts those people in office?
But they're not
the people.
They're not even talking about that, though.
No, but it's not the people who put them in the office.
But I'm just saying what happens here in Florida, like Texans should be pissed too. Their entire electric grid went out on them in the middle of one of the worst winter storms in the state's history. They lost residents, you know what I'm saying? And their senator was in Cancun with his kids on spring break. Like, that's wild, right? Like, I think about every state should be fighting for this kind of legislation or this type of attention, because every state, again, is at the whim of Mother Nature. Like, if it's not Florida, it's going to be Oklahoma. If it's not Oklahoma, it's going to be Wisconsin or California or Hawaii.
You got earthquakes. You got
we have all of it.
Fires.
We have all of it here, right? And so at some point in time, you are going to need that kind of help. You're going to need that kind of protection. So every state should be engaged. It's also why I think that we should vote on all of our senators too, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. But it's frustrating because there's some points in time when I feel like the federal government, should intervene, right? When every insurer is pulling out of Florida, at that point in time, if you want to do business in this country,
Yeah. You got to do it in the whole country.
you got to do it in the whole country. I think our federal government should have the power to say that when it comes down to, the quality of lives of Americans. Like, that to me is a place where they should, I don't know why anybody would have a problem with them saying that.
Well, the people who pay them do.
I get that, but we really pay them. Like, if you took all of that money, you know how much money we pay?
We don't really pay them, Kimmy.
I'm talking about it. No, what we pay our government though,
Yes.
collectively in our tax money,
Yes. That's
still a lot. It's more than
that's-
anybody's getting
and
under the table.
That's why we want, it collectively for the government,
Yeah.
but everyone under the table in the government is getting more than we pay in taxes. If you combine all of that government and all of that campaign contributions and all of that shit, it's way more than we pay in taxes. The support from big pharma, big energy, all of that money it goes to every one of them. Mm-hmm. Goes to every one of them. And to the lower levels, to the governors, to the, people influence mayoral elections. It's all based on money.
Here's the deal. Capitalism, everybody eats. I'm not, do your job though.
Yeah.
First and foremost, like whatever you getting on the back end, like, not that I'm saying I don't care, but
Yeah. The government shouldn't be getting that.
1,000%.
People who work in the government shouldn't be getting that.
That's a whole, that to me isn't something that we can fix.
I mean, the government
overnight.
should be like jury duty.
But
You gotta
do
fucking
your
do it.
job.
Yeah.
Do your job. Protect your people. Like, to me, this is something that every elected official should be fighting for. Like, and unfortunately, you know what they do? They pass the buck to FEMA. Oh, they dropped the ball. They got it wrong. They're filling out the wrong forms. Like, I had that fight with somebody the other day, and it's like, yo, you're talking about the person who makes 45 grand, like, you know what I mean? Who's got a stack of paperwork on their desk that seems like it's never going to be finished. They've constantly got new complaints, new claims, new what, like, there's always a new disaster. They're being uprooted from their family, moved somewhere else. You know what I mean? That's who we're going to blame. We're going to blame, Mary and Paulie. Like, I don't know. Like, no, I'm going to blame the people that I put in office. That's who I'm going to, Ted Cruz. I'm going to blame you for getting on a plane and flying to fucking Cancun.
You bring up another point, which is the way these things are run. And the people who are put in positions to make decisions and run them are not necessarily being picked on their merits. They're being promoted because they have tenure. They're being, put in positions not for qualification.
But I also wonder.
I mean, you can look at it as this is government and it's different than business, but it's not really. Business, you have your CEO, your CFO, your chief operating officer, now you have your management, then you have your staff, so all of these people that you put in these places, like who do you put in charge of FEMA? Mm-hmm. Who are you going to put in charge of FEMA?
Well, we know how this works.
I'd put somebody in charge of FEMA
who helped my campaign.
That's been in the Corps of Engineers for 30 years.
I'm saying that's who you should put in there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, these positions are allocated to friends of the
correct
administration or whatever.
Well, that's this.
Hello.
You wonder why there's problems because you're putting friggin' people who aren't qualified to serve you ice cream and
but like we put the CEO of like Exxon in charge of like the environmental, America's Commission or whatever. Like, I mean, but at that point, the American people should be able to call bullshit. But again, we're not paying attention though. Once you get your man or your woman in.
No, we're busy fighting over stupid shit.
But it's like, there's like, when do we get to be a part of the checks and balances, right? Like, we've got our branches of government. We know that they were set up to have checks and balances, but at the end of the day, the buck really should, and I realize that this sounds like a very altruistic approach to government. I get that, and I know somebody's watching, little girl, grow up! But at the end of the day, again, none of these people are in office without votes. None of these
Yes,
people get
but-
these jobs without Americans going to the ballot box
none of
and
these
checking their
people-
name.
None of these people get votes without strong financial backing. Take the strong financial backing out, and you might start to get candidates who give a fuck.
I get
and not
that.
candidates who can help someone else.
And I understand that, especially at the upper echelons. But you know where we really need to start, though, Len? We need new candidates, period. We need new.
Yeah,
No.
but
I'm
this is
talking
what
about
I'm
that.
telling you.
Starts locally. That starts locally, and that's not the same sort of economic contribution. Like Lenny, you could honestly. I know you just want to be governor or president, but if you started locally, you don't need a massive bankroll to do that.
No.
You just need to be involved in your community. You can get a
Yeah.
commissioner seat, which then leads to a possible mayoral job, which then leads to a possible, you can take two routes. You can honestly, you could run for governor if you wanted to, or you could go more of the congressional route, right? You could do state senate, you could do state Congress, or you could say, fuck it, and roll all the dice and say, I'm going to Washington. But we need new blood in the system, and we need new people who believe in the power of the American voice.
Don't you understand?
And the vote.
It's rigged from the bottom to the top.
But they're not even, no, Lenny, I get
is.
that. No, but again, that's a very aggressive
How are you going to go up against someone who's been in a position of, let's just say, mayor of, or I would go for the senator of Congress. So someone who's been a senator, anybody should be able to run for senator or congressman. That you should be able to run in your district for that. But you can't compete financially against these people who are already in there because they have the support.
They are, but guess what? That's just man the fuck up. It's another
Yeah.
excuse. You got to start
No, you
somewhere.
can run.
So you got.
Look at Vivek.
Yeah, but it's not even
Vivek got
that.
8% of the
I
Democratic
get
vote
it.
in Iowa, and he did it all himself.
But you gotta get into the fold some way,
Yeah.
somehow, some shape, some form. You just gotta take the steps. The unfortunate part is so many people are so disenfranchised with the whole process that they've got their hands up, and that can be another topic for another time. I sent you a clip about apparently Gen Z once again opting out of voting, and it's like we saw how that worked out when y'all got your panties in a wad about Bernie. You know what I mean? The young millennials mad that Bernie didn't, get the nomination. So they said, fuck it, I'm not going. You know what I mean? Some people are very happy about that. Some people are like, yeah, stay home.
Fucking idiots.
You know what I mean? And other people like me, I'm like, that's your civic duty. Like, go and vote for the rest of the shit. If you don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many other things on a presidential ballot, but whatever. But start somewhere. We need to inspire and encourage people who just care about America and who care about their community. It doesn't even have to be broad-based. It could be,
really
I
starts
care
with the
about,
community.
I care about Pembroke Pines. I care about New Bedford, Massachusetts. I care about whatever my zip code is, I care about that. And go from there. Because if you can care about that and you get your foot in the door and you start affecting actual change, you're going to be inspired to continue to do that on a larger and larger scale. And even if you don't go larger, even if you just continue to make life better for the people in your community, you continue to watch how dollars are being spent and allocated by, your state government. These are all super important roles. And you would actually have a say in what happens with insurance. You would have a say in the response in your community to a natural disaster, right? And if people know that you're not just going to lay down and take it, they're going to think twice before they take 5 months to start cleaning up your community after it's been wiped out by a fire.
Yep. I'm right with you.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
So can you just run already? Jesus.
I'm not running.
That's why he started this thing.
I'm running away.
I'm running. You know what? Goodbye. You're a part of the problem, Len.
No. I'm going to figure out a way to be the man behind the man.
I love. Listen, that's the real power spot. You kidding me?
Exactly.
But in the meantime, if there's any way that we can help the folks in Lahaina, I don't know what that looks like, but please feel free to drop a comment if you have any insight or advice, things as we head through this, again, political election season that you think the American people should be focused on or talking about.
Listen,
again.
social media pressure will get things done in this country. We've seen it happen many times.
Well, sometimes it's just lack of awareness, like you said.
Sometimes
Sometimes there's so much other.
The more you guys share that video that we put up, the more light that is shined on Lahaina, the quicker those people will get help.
Well, the other issue is, Len, that there's always something, I hate to say, as bad happening.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so as much as you can be focused on this, the next thing you know, there's historical flooding, or there's, an F5 tornado that drops down and wipes out an entire.
Let's just try this in the U.S., though. Let's worry about the U.S. Let's worry about the U.S.
There you go.
Let's
worry about us.
Let's get our
somebody's like, girl, you just figured that out.
Ducks in a row, and then we can start helping people outside of this.
Let's worry about us. It's right in our name.
Yes, imagine that.
Let's worry about us. All right. That's it. Leave your comments, like, subscribe, share, follow. Again, if you have a great idea for a guest, if you think you'd be a great guest, please feel free to reach out. Kimmy B at ManTFupTV.com. Yeah, is that it?
That's it.
All right. I had to make sure. He likes to say it, but I said it for him this time. And
stealing my thunder.
That's okay. You've had plenty of thunder.
Peace.